Well, hello YouTube, Steve Pam with General Pam Bushcraft back with you, friends. I got another video. I'm super excited to bring you this video. This is the recap of episode 5, season 11. They're up there in the Arctic Circle. This is the official recap. Stay tuned. Okay, friends, this is Alone, season 11, episode 5, titled Something in the Air. And every Alone show begins with the famous quote. This show's quote is, quote, "If we believe that tomorrow will be better, we can bear a hardship today." And that is from a person I've never heard of, Thich Nhat Hanh. And I hope I pronounced that close enough. All right, friends, let's get right into it. It's day 14 now. 7 people remain. And if you remember, they ended the last show with Timber taking a shot at that big bull moose, but they cut the end of the show right there. We don't know if he hit it or not. Well, they start with that on episode 5, and it's about 12 noon. They go right back to Timber. He's a 35-year-old from Indiana, USA, and he nails that big bull moose. He gets the shot off and he sees it hit, and then he can hear the bubbling in the lungs even, friends. And the moose goes down behind some trees. It's about 12:56 when he gets to the moose. This is a 1,200-pound moose, friends. So right away he starts gutting it. It's still pretty warm out. He's got to get the guts out. Worried about toxins, warm weather, and all that stuff. So good on Timber. And as he gets into it, friends, he's worried about grizzlies and the smell of blood in the air. Thus the name of the show, Something in the Air. He clears an area for a fire, and his plan is to work on this moose through the night. But he builds a fire, and he's burning the guts and stuff, and he's cooking a little bit of meat for himself. As he goes, he figures he can mix smoke with the blood smell and let the grizzlies know that this moose is owned by a human. It's 58 degrees, friends, pretty warm. And by 7:30 that night, he has the top half of the moose butchered. Now, round trip back to camp, it is about a mile. So he starts transporting what pieces are butchered, and the hindquarters are easily over 100 pounds, friends. And about 10:37 that night, Timber has the carcass covered up. It's 43 degrees. There's a decent chill on. And we learned that grizzlies have special eyes that enhance their night vision. All right, friends, it's day 15, 9:28 in the morning, and the show goes over to Michaela. She's that 33-year-old woman from Saskatchewan, Canada. It's 55 degrees out, and she's grinding up some charcoal and putting it on her feet. She's letting us know that her feet are sweating inside of those rubber boots. They're basically in a bog territory, so they got to wear those rubber boots. So she's good on her. She's grinding up charcoal, putting it on her feet. It's like disinfecting powder. The charcoal is super absorbent, so it dries up all the moisture, plus it kills the bacteria. Very smart on Michaela. She goes down. We learned that back on day 10, she blazed a trail for rabbits, cut the trees down. She figures that if she makes a trail, that the rabbits will start to use it. She sets up some snares on that trail that she blazed. She goes down and checks the gill net, nothing. On the way back, she sees a grouse. Friends, she takes 2 shots, and man, she misses both shots, but she finds both arrows. Remember, contestants only get to bring 9 arrows. She finds both those arrows. So good on Michaela, although she didn't get the grouse. All right, friends, it's day 15, 11:14 in the morning, and the show goes back over to Timber. Timber is finished butchering and transporting the meat. He's got all the meat transported over to his shelter. It's 57 degrees out, and his strategy now is to build a food cache. Friends, so he decides to build his food cache on the north side of the riverbank. He digs this 6-foot big rectangle hole into the mud. He cuts some big logs and he builds this fortified food cache, and he calls it, let me look at my notes now, and he calls it Fort Moose Meat. About 2 o'clock he gets it done. Friends, he lines the inside with spruce boughs. Then he lays some small logs down, puts a layer of meat, more small logs, another layer of meat, and he gets all his moose meat in the food cache. Fort Moose Meat. All right, friends, day 15, 2:17 p.m., and the show goes on over to Jake. He's the 42-year-old from Idaho, USA, and he goes down to check the gill net, and friends, he's got 2 pike, one super big pike. The smaller pike that he catches, it's got a burbot in its mouth. So he opens up the fish, he opens up the mouth of the pike, shakes that burbot out. Friends, he gets 3 fish. So Jake is feeling much better, friends. He tells us that he's got a busted tailbone, and we know that he's got those 2 burned hands, but with the 3 fish, he's feeling much better now. So good on Jake. All right, friends, it's day 15, 4:12 p.m., and the show goes over to Isaiah. He's the 35-year-old from West Virginia, USA, and we see him brushing his teeth with some charcoal. He makes a video for his nieces and nephews because they had a question for him. They say, hey, Uncle Chow Chow, they call him. How are you going to brush your teeth when you're out there? So he makes a video, brushes his teeth with a piece of charcoal. So good on Isaiah. So his focus is on the shelter, and he's building, remember, he's building that big old bunker, friends, that big log cabin bunker. And that he spends a whole day building a massive rock fireplace. No food for him that day, and it's a crazy big shelter. All right, friends, it's about 12:30 in the morning, just a little bit past midnight. The show's still focusing on Isaiah, and he's asleep in his shelter, and some howling wolves wake him up. They sound real close. So he says, I really feel I got to get that shelter done. Now it's day 16, 9:01 in the morning. We see Isaiah waking up from a rough night of sleep. Those wolves are howling, so he's pushing hard to get that shelter done. All right, friends, it's day 16, 1:24 p.m. The show goes back over to Michaela. She shows us a bird's nest that she found up in the trees. She saves it for a bird's nest for maybe a future fire. She's working on that shelter. That's that A-frame shelter that's connected to a tree. It's nice and small, easy to warm. And friends, she hears some noise in the forest. It turns her around. She hears this screech, friends. She goes over to investigate. She sees a marten run off. Friends, she finds a rabbit that this marten killed. Wow, we see her skin, and about 3:46 that afternoon, she's eating that rabbit. She gets that rabbit that marten killed. Says it tastes delicious. All right, friends, it's day 16, 4:23 p.m., and the show goes over to Dub, back over to Dub. He's fishing with the hand line, and he can see a school of whitefish out in the water. And so he puts some bait on a hook, wades out there a little bit with his rubber boots, and he gets a fish on and gives it a good yank. We see it on video, and the fish falls off. Oh, man. All right, friends, still day 16, 5:09 p.m. now, and the show goes back over to Timber. Timber's checking on his food cache, friends, and he finds a mink inside the food cache, and this sucker eats half of the heart, friends. That big old moose heart. So he decides, oh man, he knows that these minks and martens and stuff, they're going to want to eat all the fat first. So he's got a good idea. He's going to render all the fat. He takes a lot of it back to his shelter, and he's boiling and cooking down this fat in his pot, and he needs to make some containers. So we see him make a nice birch bark container, these big long lard canisters. And so good on him. He's going to render all the fat down and make these birch bark canisters. We saw him make the one. Looks pretty good. So he's worried. He's worried about these animals eating all of his food, and it's still pretty warm. So he decides to continue to live in his tarp shelter. He uses that beautiful log cabin A-frame shelter that he made as a giant smoker. So he put rows and rows and rows of strips of moose meat up in there, and puts a fire in his log cabin shelter and starts smoking that meat. So good on Timber. He's looking real strong so far. All right, friends, it's day 17, 3:26 p.m. The show goes back over to Dub. He's sitting in his shelter, beatboxing and moving the camera around like he's having a rave inside of his shelter. He gets up, decides to go fishing, and we see him make a nice bushcraft style spring pole with an L7 trigger. And once he sets the bait on that spring pole, he's fishing next to it with a hand line. He catches a nice pike, friends, on his hand line. And as he's getting ready to clean that pike, friends, his spring pole gets triggered. What he was going to do, he was going to go ahead and pull the bait in on the spring pole with the L7 trigger. And friends, right before he does that, that thing catches a pike. So good on Dub. He walks away with 2 nice pike. All right, friends, it's day 17 now, 4:46 p.m. Excuse me, and Michaela is sitting out there, 42 degrees. She goes down and gets some water to boil. She boils and drinks that, and she's starting to feel really alone, friends. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. You can see it in her face, friends. Day 18, 7:47 a.m. She goes down to check the gill net, and she catches a giant pike. But friends, she releases it back in the water, friends. Her mind is already made up. At 9:51 a.m., friends, she taps out. Oh my goodness, 17 days in, friends. Michaela taps out. There's 6 people remaining. The show ends right there. Oh man, friends. That concludes my recap of episode 5 of season 11 of Alone. They're up there in the Arctic Circle. There's a lot of food, friends, on this season 11. Lots of fish. Timber's got that moose. Some people's already got rabbits and squirrels and grouse. So there's plenty of food. But friends, that alone, that isolation will get you. I want to thank you for stopping by the channel, listening to this recap. I'm keeping you guys abreast of what's going on over there in the UK. I thank you guys for tuning in. Hey, I appreciate everything you do for the channel, all your views, all your likes, all your shares, but most importantly, I love all your comments. Friends, leave me a comment. Let me know who you think's gonna win this thing. 6 people remain. I got my money on Timber with that moose. We saw a sneak peek of the next show, friends, and there's some med checks coming up. And I think somebody gets pulled on a med check. All right. Before you leave the channel, please consider subscribing. If you subscribe, bang that bell icon, and in the drop-down menu, do select all, friends. All right. Please, please don't depart from the faith. And if you haven't already, give your life to Christ, friends. Use your free will, invite him in. He'll come in, he'll save you. He died on the cross for you. He loves you very much. Don't wait. Do it today. All right. As always, God is good. God is great. I see y'all on the next video. Already got a date.